and Ken couldn't join, that Ken probably can't join. He might not be able to join at all, and that Pam won't be able to get on until about 10. So she's going to miss your presentation, Monica. But I don't know who else we're expecting.
Okay.
We should probably, but because we're recording it, so that's super helpful.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So it's 9:02, so we should probably wait a couple more minutes. And I'm sorry to interrupt your chat, you guys. You can go ahead and
no worries.
Yeah.
do that. Are you going to share with us about the reach well, Monica?
I am. I'm going to share about that. Do you want me to just test sharing my screen right now to see if that works well?
Yeah, let's do that while we're waiting. Katie just got on.
Oh, perfect. Oh yeah, it should let me. I'll share it and then I'll unshare it just to.
Okay, perfect. Yep, I see it. Okay.
Yes. Great. And let me make it. Is it full screen now too, to where you don't see all the weird PowerPoint stuff on the side?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, I will unshare it. Now we know that works.
Okay. Hi, Katie. You there?
She must still be getting the audio set up.
Yeah. Yeah, I've not used this platform before, the Cisco WebEx, so I was a little nervous when I got on. I was like, uh-oh, if it takes a while to download, I don't want to be late for them.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sitting in here like 15 minutes ahead going, all right, I can't even get on.
Oh dear.
It's just like nothing is happening. It's like you stranger to WebEx.
Yeah.
Hi, Tegan. Tegan and Katie.
I just want to reach out and say if anybody is on their phone for the meeting, they may need to press *6 to unmute themselves.
Okay. And I think Ken is going to do that when he gets on at the hotel. So, because he's out in California, I think. Or maybe he said he couldn't come at all, but that's okay because we're recording for him. So I'm going to say that we should go ahead and get started, Monica, because I know you have another meeting to get to.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So welcome and thank you.
Yeah, of course. Well, I will go ahead and share my screen again, and then we'll jump right in. Can folks see my screen?
Yes.
We will be able to in a second.
It's getting there. Yeah, there.
Awesome.
Well, let's do our introductions first. I'm sorry, I skipped. I was like, where's the agenda? Forget the most basic things. So, John Baumhover, Town of Nederland Community Center Manager. Monica?
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Monica Weber, and I'm a disaster management coordinator with the Boulder Office of Disaster Management.
All right. Tegan?
I'm Tegan Blakey, a Magnolia resident, and work with a couple different nonprofit groups.
And Katie? We can't hear you, Katie.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can. Thanks.
Yeah. Hi, Katie Arrington, Assistant Recovery Manager for Boulder County. And I am in my car, so I'm not sure. Right now I'm connected to internet outside my house, but I'm about to start driving, so I may need to reconnect with my phone.
Okay. And what capacity are you with the county now?
I'm the Assistant Recovery Manager for the county.
Still assistant, even though Gary's gone?
Yep, that's a true statement.
Okay.
They're hiring for his replacement currently.
Are you applying for it?
Yes. Yep.
Awesome. Yay. Well, we're pulling for you. We're in your corner. At least I am, because you have the experience.
I will let you guys know.
All right. Thank you.
And, you know, someone from our team plans on being here for all IMA meetings going forward, especially once we're back up to full staff.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Someone from recovery. That would be great because that's just a thing. I mean, it's not in Boulder County, right? Maybe it is. The washouts in Cold Creek, is any of that in Boulder County, or is it all in Jefferson or Gilpin?
I don't think we've had it in Boulder County yet, but you know. Okay.
Yeah, because Cold Creek is washed.
Still raining.
Yeah, still rainy, still raining.
Okay.
Oh, what a statement. Okay, thank you, Katie. All right, Monica, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you.
Wonderful. Great. So again, Monica Weber from Boulder Office of Disaster Management. That may sound like a new office name as well. We were formerly the Boulder Office of Emergency Management, and that has shifted so that we're more aligned with what we do. It's easier to publicly identify. We're not the lights and sirens emergency folks, but rather disaster folks. So today we'll be going over alert and warning and how that relates to preparedness. There's a lot of information that we'll cover. So as I go through, feel free to like put questions in the chat, or we can hit questions at the end as well, just because I will likely answer questions that you have as we go through the content.
Mhm.
So with that, we'll hop on in and I'll move my slides forward. So a little overview of what we'll do today. We'll do a little bit of context building just with like history of disasters in the county, cycle of a disaster really quickly, and then hit the meat and potatoes of it, which is emergency notification systems, what those are, how they all work, and then we'll talk a little bit about next steps as well. So with this, my computer is being kind of slow with the click, so I apologize for that. A little bit of history for disasters in Boulder County, which if folks have been around for a while, you've probably experienced a few, but wanted to give some context around terminology that we'll use throughout this. So disaster versus emergency. Curious if anyone has thoughts on what the difference between those two things might be. And you can throw it in the chat or you can unmute if you'd like to.
In a way, I'm thinking disaster is more long term. Like there's an initial incident, but it's a longer incident, basically.
Yeah, so that duration.
Yeah.
Great. Other thoughts on differences that might exist between the two? Alrighty, and I realized too, I can't see the chat, so that's silly of me to say, yes, put it in there. But yeah, thinking of it, like one of the things that you hit on, Nail's part of it, is like the duration piece. When we think of disasters, we're really looking at like that scope and scale. So when it's something that overruns, a fire department or a municipality's ability to kind of manage whatever the incident is, it then rises to that disaster level. Whereas an emergency is a more acute type of incident. It happens, but it might be over in a couple hours, able to be kind of managed and maintained in a quicker span of time. So that's just a little bit of context and part of our name change as well, of the We Deal with Disasters component. And then disaster history. Out of curiosity, what disasters, if you'd like to share, have you experienced in Boulder County? Or if you're newer, which I think folks on this call have been around a little while, what types you think might occur in our county?
So I've been around along with Pam, since 4 Mile Fire. So we've done the 4 Mile Fire, the flood, the Cold Springs Fire,
Yeah.
the pandemic, and all those evacuations that happened during 3 years ago in the East Troublesome and Cameron Peak and Cowwood and Left Hand. Yeah.
Yeah. Got
So
a long list.
we've done the dance a few times.
Yeah.
And of course, stand by for support with Boulder County for Marshall for anything they needed.
Yeah. How about other folks? And you can throw it in the chat. I can now see the chat, so you can do chat or unmute if you'd like.
I was around in a little bit for the Calwood and Left Hand fires and the evacuations from Jamestown.
Yeah.
I apologize for being late.
Hi, Ken.
Realized I didn't have WebEx on my cell phone, so I had to go out and install the app and write in a bunch of numbers. I didn't even know what I did. But anyway, I got on here. To answer your question, I think in Jamestown, we have been singed a little bit, but the fires have always missed us.
Yeah.
But we have had in our history since 1883, four very major 100-year floods, or in case of 2013, more than 100-year flood. So that's what we would expect. We're just geographically in the right place for that to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Y'all nailed the top two in terms of what we experience as a county. Fire is the #1 risk that we have as an entirety of a county, and then flood is number 2. But other things like wind events, winter storms, avalanche, all those types of things can fall into that category. There's a list that I can send over to Ken to get to everybody that we have that's our like 3 or 4 page document of like disaster history in the county, which for some it might feel like, oh my goodness, that's overwhelming. Why would you give that to us? But rather, I choose to take it and frame it from the approach of like, yes, we have had a lot of disasters, and the disasters that you all mentioned are very numerous as well. But thinking about that and kind of reframing it of, we've had a lot in the past, we're going to continue to have them. But I think what that shows is the resiliency that people didn't bail out of the county and say, all right, we're done, we're not doing this anymore, bad place to live. But rather folks being able to like have that community support and that resiliency have been able to continue to get through disasters. And so we will continue to do that as a community. But that's just a little framing again to add in some of that context. So next we'll hit really quickly cycle of a disaster just to give like framework of where we're at in this process. We're doing the preparedness phase, which happens prior to a disaster. So we're doing really good steps here. I wish that everyone in the county would, engage with different ways to educate themselves. So you all are right on top of it. Preparedness begins prior to a disaster. For community members, that can look like things like signing up for emergency alerts, creating your own personal plan, creating a grab list for yourself or a go bag, depending on which you kind of subscribe to. And then for response agencies, so for folks like our office, Housing and Human Services, public health, and then our traditional kind of first responders, law enforcement, fire, they're building their preparedness by building their capabilities to respond, make sure that their staff have good training, make sure they have the proper resources and equipment so they can, respond to the incident and support our community as we go through that. So then the next phase is response. This one I think is one that's like fairly straightforward in the sense of people are going to whatever the disaster is and they are making the impact less is the kind of, boiled down way to think of it. But with response, that's like I said, our first responders, but then also a lot of other support mechanisms throughout the county that work on that response piece. I think when we've done like cold weather sheltering, that's all like Housing and Human Services, public health, rather than our traditional first responders. So folks from around the county get working on that. Incident command is established in the field, which I'll talk about that a little more when we talk about the alert piece itself. But incident command is going to be traditionally law enforcement or fire, and they're the ones that are out at the incident. They're sizing things up. So in a fire, they're looking at, where do we think it's going? What are the impacted communities? Making those key decisions and managing folks that are responding to keep their staff safe. And then on our office's side, we have a room called the Emergency Operations Center. It's a physical place in our building. And that's where we go along with all of our county partners and community partners to then start to kind of manage that response and support coordination piece. So our office is an office of 5, and that's the kind of role that we play in this. Sometimes folks think like, oh, disaster management, you all are sending the alerts or, doing other components where our focus is really the support and coordination piece of it. So we've got that. Recovery begins once that immediate life safety component has kind of subsided. That's where disaster or disaster damage assessments are going to be performed. Disaster assistance centers might get set up and then support services activate just to get the community back to kind of that baseline of normal or whatever a new normal might be, because we know disasters can kind of alter the landscape of what our normal might be. So getting us back to that phase and then rounding out the cycle is mitigation. And so that's the process of lessening consequences, lessening impact of a disaster. So I think, for mountain communities especially, I think we think about like clearing or managing fire fuels, or Ken, like you mentioned with flood risk, like making sure that debris is clear from any drainage systems, streams, anything like that that might feed larger waterways, or just renovating infrastructure might even be a piece of it. It could be home hardening where you're looking at, okay, I've got a lot of wood around my home. Maybe I'm going to switch out some of these materials as I'm able, or I'm going to move my wood pile for the winter, into a contained space, or not just piles of wood outside that could become ignition sources. So mitigation is just that lessening of the consequence by adjusting our environment in some way. So that's a very quick go through of that cycle. And now we'll get into the depth of it, which is emergency notification systems. Like I said, I might hit on things that you have questions on throughout this, but if you've got them and you're like, this is burning, and I need to ask it, feel free to just like unmute yourself or put it in the chat, and then we can address those as we go as well. Any questions on anything so far as well? Great. And I should have asked this at the very beginning. Anything that if I don't cover today, you'll be like, wow, what a waste of my time this meeting was, because I can then weave it in as we go through this next portion. Anything that you're like, burning thing you have to know by the time we leave.
You're doing great. This is all helpful information.
Wonderful.
And it's always good review, always.
Wonderful. Well, I'm glad the bar is very low then. I will be
Home-
successful.
I've never heard home hardening before. So that I just wrote that phrase down. It's
Yeah.
like, yep. I mean, I know what it is,
Yeah.
but thank you for that phrase. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Monica, kind of to follow up what Don just said,
Yeah.
I'm curious, are you guys, your office, receiving any funding through the 1A ballot measure, given a couple of things you named?
Our office specifically, no. But there are groups like that are within the county that are working on that funding, and I'm like kind of tied into one a little bit with some of the preparedness pieces, but yeah, we're not specifically getting any to my knowledge, but I know that budget meetings are kind of an ongoing thing that my role is not a part of.
Okay.
But and I can follow up on that too. If there's something I don't know, I can ask about that. But
Okay, yeah, I was just curious.
yeah. Cool. Alrighty, well, we will begin rolling through this. So emergency notification systems, there are a lot of them in our county, which we're very lucky to have because some places, I was on a call yesterday and there's other, counties, municipalities around the country that don't have such a robust system. So we are in a good spot with that. But with that comes the challenge of understanding all of them because there's a lot to choose from. And with emergency notification systems, we really want it to be a layered approach. So as we go through all of these, I don't want anyone to get married to like, I'm going to use this one and I'm done. I'm not touching anything else because we know a lot of times like technology systems, other components of our modern day can sometimes fail us, especially in disasters when we think about infrastructure that could be burned over, high winds, things that impact some of those communication lines. So that's why really lean into this, pick a couple at least from this conversation that we'll have that you want to use as kind of the ones that you rely on. So with that, first kind of question we'll go in with is, how are you typically notified of an emergency? How are you made aware of that?
Bridge,
No wrong answers.
reverse 911,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
text and call through Boulder County being registered.
Yeah, absolutely.
The tower goes down, that doesn't help.
Yep.
So there's that.
Yeah.
Firefighters going door to door.
Yeah, absolutely.
Officers, yep.
The siren,
Mm-hmm.
We'll actually usually hear about something from one neighbor or another, someone who's seen
Mhm.
smoke or fire first before actually the notifications go out.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
senses. So yeah, we see the smoke,
Yes.
smell the smoke, start looking, start connecting with people.
mhm.
Where's it coming from? Is it blowing over the divide from something far away, or is that a
Yeah.
local?
Yeah.
'Cause sometimes it smells like it's on top of us.
Mhm. Absolutely. I think that becomes more challenging in the mountains too, when you don't have that flat line of sight like we do out, here on the flats. That becomes an additional kind of hurdle. Sorry, Ken, I think I cut you off.
I'm sorry, I would have cut you off. But anyway, I think too, a lot of people will go on the bulletin board and ask
Mhm.
questions or give information, or
Mhm.
some of it is gossip, but some of it is accurate.
Yeah. I appreciate you mentioning that too, because I think it is something to always be mindful of when information starts to swirl out there of who has accurate and potentially vetted information and who is just like, I think that I heard this thing. Because oftentimes your neighbors and folks in your community are going to be very helpful, but always having that like little, back of your mind thing of like, does this seem real? I don't know that that seems accurate. So yeah, discerning that for sure. Well, great. Well, you all are ready to teach the rest of this session, so good on you. So I really, really appreciate that a couple of y'all mentioned this, but remembering that you are always your first notification. So using those senses, like you mentioned, Dawn, of like paying attention to what's around you, because we have heard from community members like kind of horror stories, I would say, of them like texting a neighbor and saying like, hey, there's fire coming towards us, like your fence is on fire, is your mother home, we gotta go, we can go get her, and the neighbor is saying like, oh, I've not got an alert yet, I think it's fine. And to me, that's like very scary. And so just really reminding people of this, not as a like do better, pay more attention, but rather an empowering statement of like you and that gut feeling you have is probably not wrong. And so trusting those senses of like, if it seems a little wonky, seems like stuff's going on, you're probably right. And then take those actions that will keep you and your loved ones safe in that. So that is our like number one, always trust that gut. And if you're not sure, you're like, I don't know what's going on, I think something, but I'm not 100% sure on what I should be doing, what the thing is. You can always visit the Boulder Office of Disaster Management website. And there will be a bar at the top that says view recent alerts. So folks can check that at any time and see like what alerts have been sent out, what is going on in the county in general. So that can be a good resource to kind of vet your own gut feeling if you're kind of wavering on it. But with that, you will get other alerts that are more formal. And with that, when it's not you, there's a process for how those alerts get initiated. And so that begins always in the field with that incident command position. So that law, firefighter, those folks out there that are managing the scene, they're the ones that are going to be sizing things up and determining where things need to go. So we'll go through this little kind of phase of incident command to dispatch to the public in more depth over the next couple slides. So first, incident command. Like I said, they're in the field, they're sizing things up. They're the ones that are making the call on, do we need to send a warning, an order to evacuate, what a shelter in place, whatever that might look like. That is their decision. They're the folks making the call on that. So I like to clarify that because sometimes I think folks are like, like Office of Disaster Management or dispatchers are sitting there in a room and they're just picking a spot and saying go. No, there's actual eyes on the scene so that they're able to use their knowledge of like, let's say it's fire science and those other pieces to assess the environment and make those decisions so that we're not over alerting areas, but also not under alerting. And so once they're there, they size it up, they then develop an area that might be impacted. And our county, since I think like August of 2019, there's been this polygon project, which is the image on your left, I believe, that's got all the like little red boxes on it and tiny little numbers and letters on it. And that was a project that started in 2019. It's now finished, but it divides our entire county up into preset areas so that alerts can go out so much quicker than having someone have to draw an area or communicate that over the phone to dispatchers. They can just say, we need BC 18, sent a warning or sent an order to evacuate, and that can go really quickly. So that's like one way that they can determine that area. They can also, depending on the nature of the incident, do that kind of middle picture where they just say, here's the incident, we're going to do a radius around this, and that's who's going to get the notification, folks within that area. And then the last photo is one where if they're like, this is a little bit wonky, it impacts a much more specific area, they might hand draw or hand relay that, or not hand relay, voice relay that information to our dispatchers to say, here's the very specific area, again, so that they're not potentially evacuating more people than need to, putting more people on the roads, or vice versa, not getting that area quite right. So that's what they do. They relay all this information then to dispatch with like the nature of the incident, the area that needs to get evacuated, any other additional information, and then dispatch goes through, they enter in a bunch of stuff in their system that they have and then send that out. So that's kind of how the alert is born, from incident command to dispatch, and then it winds up in your hands in one of the methods that we will talk through in the next few slides. So different types of alert methods that are formal outside of the you and that gut feeling one. The first one that we'll talk about, which is probably familiar to folks, and if not, it will become familiar, and I beg of you, if nothing else today, sign up for Everbridge opt-in alerts. Because this is a really handy tool, and currently only 40% of our county is signed up for these. So if you sign up for these, if you can encourage folks that you know and care about, even folks that you don't care as much about, get them to sign up for these, that would be a tremendous help in helping to increase those numbers, and people often listening to someone that they know personally a little bit better than like random community staff members saying, hey, please sign up for this. So with Everbridge, these are opt-in style alerts. They will be automatic if you have a landline phone, but many folks, I will say, well, it might ebb and flow, but folks don't have landlines in the same way that they used to. So we really encourage everyone to opt in, make your account, sign up, and that means that you can get alerts via call, text, email, I think fax might even still be an option, which is an odd one, but if you so choose, that could be your choice. But it'll get you alerts in any or all of these if you so choose. And the really key thing about creating an account rather than just saying, oh, I have a landline, it'll call through to me, is that you can then manage the account. So you can add up to 5 addresses. So if you wanted to put a home address, locations in the community that you frequent, a friend's home, whatever that might be, you can add up to 5. And that's a really critical piece because signing up for these means that you are in the system, but you're only going to get notified if your addresses that are entered in are in one of those either radiuses or sections of the county that is determined to need an alert, if that makes sense. So if we harken back to that slide with the different mapping on it, if your address is outside of the area that needs the alert deemed by the fire or law folks, you're not going to get it. Because you're not in an at-risk area. So that's just a really key thing because we'll have folks reach out and say like, well, I live in Superior and a thing was happening across town, but I never got an alert for it. It's because your home address or whatever address you've entered isn't in that alert area. So that's a really just key component to know about it. But if you're someone that's like, I would like to be in the know for any and all alerts that go out throughout the county, let me tell you about a great solution. Reachwell. So Reachwell is a new app that the county acquired. I think May 1st was the first day that it went live. And this is a phone app that you can get. You can search it in your app store on your phone and then just download it. And then once you're in it, you search BOCO Alert, which looks like this kind of little red outline of the county here. It says BOCO Alert inside. You can then add that to it and it will send you through any of the alerts that go out within the county. Key thing is, I do mean any alert. So if it goes out, you're getting it if you have this app. But I don't feel like we send out all that many. Like even recently, I think there was one that went out a couple days ago and there's not been anything super recent. But this can be really handy just to have that awareness if you'd like it. And the real like pin that was why we got it is it provides alerts in over 100 languages. So if folks have languages other than English that are their primary language, this will then automatically let them pick whatever language and then the alerts will just transcribe into that. So this is a really great tool if you know folks that might need that function, or just if you yourself want to be very in the know about all the county happenings. So that's a little bit about Reachwell. And then next is wireless emergency alerts. And this is the alert that's kind of that Amber Alert style. So it just blasts through your phone as long as you don't have it disabled in your phone settings. And it pushes through cell towers. So it's something where if your phone is within the vicinity, there's no sign up. It's just coming to you automatically. So you might get these when you're visiting an area that you're, that is not home or whatever that might be. But that's how those go through. These are used fewer and far between just because they have a tendency to either over alert and then blast notifications to areas that are not needing them. And this is a federal system. So this we use much more sparingly when there's like a life safety type of issue, but very sparingly. And then Ken, you got your hand up?
Yeah, about the Reachwell app.
Oh, sure.
I've signed up for the app, but I have never gotten an alert. But when you get an alert, what information will you receive? I mean, how much information would come along with that alert?
Yeah, that's a great question. So,
and my second part of that question,
yeah,
what should you do with that information? In other words, would the next step then to be get on the internet and check the Office of Disaster Management for further information? Would that be necessary? So that's my question.
So yeah, it depends. That's a great question. The alert itself will be the exact same alert that goes out through Everbridge. So it's like whatever the dispatchers typed in for those Everbridge opt-ins, it will be that same alert. And so, what they'll typically include is like time, date, who's sending it out, what the nature of the incident is, and then a directive or an action to take, which we'll talk through the different kind of vocabulary and terminology of those actions in a few slides. So there's that piece. And then what you should do, the alerts will always have a little link that will take you to our website that'll show a map that shows like impacted area, and sometimes we'll have a more in-depth message. But if you get the alert and you're like, I don't exactly know what this is like telling me to do, you can always go on our website and then click view those recent alerts, and that will give you the full scope of whatever message, because depending on phone age, which in reach well, this shouldn't be an issue, but phone age, there can be different numbers of characters, like for a WIA, for example, but Everbridge stuff will always be a static number. So information should all be in the alert. But if you find that it's not, definitely visit our website if you're like, there's gaps in this information. And then when we activate, we'll usually open up a call center as well, and that number will be out there so that you can call that instead of 911. My other little soapbox I'll get on is when you get an alert, unless you're having a separate actual emergency, don't call 911 to verify if it's a real alert, because that happens without fail every time that something gets sent out. The dispatchers who are in our building, they're getting somebody that's just managing phone calls of like, is this about this? We got it. Is this about this? We got it. Or on the flip side, people calling and saying like, is this real? Or it says I need to evacuate. Should I evacuate? Yes. Please, please, please listen to the guidance in the alert. Unless something in your gut is like, I think this is very wrong. This doesn't have anything to do with us. Maybe there's some kind of technological error with that. But I would say otherwise, like, do what the alert advises you to do. You know, if you're like, oh, it is a snowy day and it is actively snowing and it, you know, says something like, well, that's a bad example. But thinking of like, if it's so opposite of what the conditions are currently that you're like, there's no way that could be happening, maybe use that like, you know, deductive reasoning of like, this seems off, let me check the website for more information. But all of the times I'd say, please do what the alert says. But yes, so I hope that answers that. That's a very long-winded way of me answering that, but yeah. So we, as like I said, used fewer and far between, just because there's cell carriers don't have to push them through. There's different like phone age things and cell tower connectivity things that just make this like a more complex system that is less reliable than the ones that we've mentioned earlier. So, but it's still out there. I think it's helpful to know. So if you ever get that blast through, like, what is this? It's a wireless emergency alert.
I do have a question.
Oh, sure.
Jocelyn had mentioned something about with the 5 addresses back under the reach well, that we could share that, like put an out of state address, like my mother's house in Michigan,
sure.
so she would know where we were, but then she would get our alerts. I mean, would that be a different number that she would sign up for in Boulder County? How would that?
So I'd recommend, so yeah, like my recommendation for all folks is like create your own account. So if you had a relative out of state who are like, I want them to know what's going on for our home address, you could tell them, hey, here's this website, like sign up for Everbridge or sign up for Reachwell, and then you can get notifications for our home here. But I would do that, like, and you can add their phone number in under your account, but I would encourage folks to like create their own account. That way they've got it set if they want to tone it down and not have as many things they can.
Okay.
But that can be really helpful. And to like vice versa, if you have relatives that are out of state that you're like, I want to know what's going on with you because I know that you might need assistance, or there's another relative I should call to go help you get out of your home, or whatever that is, you can always, like, if you search like name of town or city and emergency alerts, like I do this when I travel because I'm a nerd and I'm like, let me be extra safe all the time, but I'll travel and say, you know, okay, Austin, Texas emergency alerts, and then I'll sign up for the time that I'm there, just so if something goes on, it's a place that I, you know, typically I'm traveling to new places when I go. So I'm like, I don't know the lay of the land super well. Something goes on, I want to make sure I can at least be in the know about that. So something to consider to add to your toolkit. Again, not to make it overwhelmed with like, oh my God, I have to sign up for all this stuff. But just something that if you've got loved ones out of state, you can kind of keep each other in the loop with that. Because I know like I'm signed up for alerts in my home county in California, just because they're high risk for very similar things that we're high risk for. So it lets me know like, how are my friends and family doing? So
Thank you.
yeah, of course. Yeah, so door to door, which got mentioned, I think Rose, you might have mentioned that, but that's used when we've got enough officials to do it. So not something to depend on from that official standpoint all the time. But neighbors helping neighbors also kind of falls into this category. So you might have someone that lives down the road who's like, all right, I think this thing is going on. I'm going to go knock to see if they're home and let them know what's up. So, you know, people could be doing that for you. You also could do that to others. So just something, again, to throw into that toolkit of things that you can do to help or that others might be doing to outreach to you. And then outdoor warning sirens, which I think Ken mentioned these in Jamestown, but those are intended for people who are outdoors. We hear sometimes from community members of like, I never heard it. Well, that's because you were in your home during the time that it went off. It's not intended for you. The sirens are meant for folks who are out, recreating on, open space, public lands, or outdoors in any capacity. And those are typically used for flash flood, tornado out more towards the east side of the county. And then there's some that have a wildfire package, but that's not necessarily consistent across the county. So checking with your local fire folks on, hey, do we get these or not? Because they're the folks that like set up kind of what those systems have capabilities for. So a little bit on outdoor warning sirens, and sirens, as well as the next two that we'll talk about, are very weather focused. So rather than like fire risk, these are all going to be more like weather hazard focused. The next one being the emergency alert system. So if you've ever been driving around in your car and you hear that like eek, 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 and then the robot voice comes and talks to you, that's what the emergency alert system is. And that can be on your TV. It doesn't talk to you like that necessarily, but it'll be like a banner that comes across. That is typically used for severe weather. So if we're going to have hail, any kind of like high winds, severe storm, that type of thing will come through in that format, which again is helpful. I think oftentimes I know I get in the framework of like wildfire. That's what the focus is. And knowing like, yes, we're high risk for that, but hail, like the hailstorms we just had damaged a whole lot of stuff for people that lived out in like Longmont, Erie. So knowing like it's helpful to be in the know for those types of situations as well, so it doesn't become personally disastrous, if nothing else. And then all hazards weather radios, which are used for severe weather. Again, they can also be helpful. Like I have one that has a little, like you can charge things in it and it has a hand crank, so it runs off batteries, but that can be a helpful thing just to add into your toolkit of preparedness things. Because then you can charge items. It has like a flashlight built in. So different uses for that beyond just weather radio, but they can be helpful to have around if that's something that you feel like would be useful. And then terminology we'll go over. Any alert that you get is going to be one of three things. If you hear the word pre-evac, that is dead to us in Boulder County. That is not a thing. We use advisory, warning, and order. And that's really to help make that clear, because I think pre-evac, to me, all that means is like, get ready to get nervous. Like you don't know what you're supposed to do. And if you never get beyond pre-evac, but then it maybe switches, but the alert you didn't get, we don't want folks sitting in that limbo space. So we go through this process, and in a dream world, the information would always come like advisory first, then warning, then order. Sometimes depending on the speed or severity, it might go straight to order or straight to warning. But we'll talk about what each of these kind of means. And so an advisory, you might be like, why is there vegetables on this? We're going to use an analogy of like cooking some dinner. So an advisory is really used to raise your awareness. If we think of this of like you're cooking dinner, this is the point where you're at the grocery store. You're just shopping, you see some stuff, there's conditions maybe that would be right for you to acquire items that help you cook dinner, but nothing's happening yet, right? You're still picking things out, you've got a list. So an advisory is just a like heads up type of information message. And then the next phase is a warning. So at this point, you are home from the grocery store, you are getting ready to take action, you are starting to prepare your dinner situation. So this is one where like the conditions maybe are starting to become right for a severe weather event or for wildfire, those types of things, right? We know humidity is low, no precipitation recently, high wind day. That's going to be a like warning for like wildfire type of weather. This is also a phase where we encourage folks, if it might take longer to mobilize because of mobility challenges, large animals you have to load up, small animals you have to load up, whatever it might be, the warning phase can be a really good time to start to take that action and mobilize, to one, lower your stress levels and just not have to be in that like, all right, it's a make or break moment, we've got an order. Warning gives you a little bit more flexibility with that. And again, using your gut and your kind of intuition of like, I feel okay, I don't need to go, versus if you're like, yep, I know it's going to take me a little bit longer, or I know like I've got items that run on power that I might need to get loaded up or open my garage door, or whatever it might be in case the power goes out. Warning phase is when we want folks to start to take those actions. And then when we ramp up, dinner's on the table now, that's when an order happens. That is like, it is served, it is in front of you, it is time to chow down, or in the case of actual disaster, either evacuate, shelter in place, climb to higher ground. those types of things. So once you get an order, that's not necessarily the time to think about and contemplate what you want to do. That's where you should have whatever your plan is and be able to follow that out so that you can get yourself to a safe spot. So that's a little bit about that terminology. And then in your alert that you'll get, it'll also have some kind of action to take, unless it's that advisory phase or warning phase. But once it's an order, it's going to tell you some type of action. And so the first one we'll talk about is climb to higher ground. That is used during floods. I was once on a meeting where someone's like, yeah, in a wildfire, climb to higher ground. And I was like, no, wrong. That's not what it's for at all. So make sure that, you know, in floods, you do that. And that could just be getting higher than wherever you're at currently, right? If folks are like, I can't get up this hillside, great. Go to a second floor of a building, go on top of something that is just higher than your current spot. An evacuation, that's a directive to leave an area immediately, oftentimes used in our wildfire type of situations. Shelter in place is directive to remain indoors until something is resolved. And that could be hazmat incident, severe weather, active harm, or any of those types of things. And then missing an endangered person, that's just information shared out to increase the community's awareness of like, hey, you know, Dan is missing. Dan needs to get returned to wherever Dan goes. If more community members know about that, that helps them keep an eye out for that as well. Kind of that neighbors supporting neighbors type of mentality. And then the last type of informational kind of directive that you'll get is an all clear, which means whatever the hazard was, it has been contained, doesn't present a threat to the community any longer, so you're safe to unshelter in place, come back to wherever you were at previously, come down from your higher location, etc., etc. So that's some of those actions. And then additional information sources, like we kind of talked about with Ken's question of like, do we go to the website? What do we do? Boulder ODM website is my requested, like, number one, go there for information, just because that information is vetted and it's directly from folks that are out in the field that are making those key decisions, filtered through our dispatch center or through our office to put up there. So that's a really key piece. And then social media can be helpful as well, or other types of like discussion groups, chats, texts, whatever. Because anytime that a notification goes out, that means somebody saw the thing first, right? So like you see smoke somewhere, you call 911 and say, hey, I think there's a fire here. You might be the first person to see that. So if you pop something about that on a chat board you're on social media, that information is going to potentially reach people before an alert does if they're on those things, or if you text someone, right? Because you've seen it with your own eyes versus it having to get seen, called into dispatch, alert sent out. So that can just be a helpful spot to, again, gather additional information and keep up even with loved ones of like, are you all safe? You know, if that's an option that you so choose. So there's that. And then emergency notifications while traveling is my last little like piece of this. Opt-in systems, searching the location that you're going to or the location of folks that live out of state or out of town if you want to have those types of alerts can be really helpful just to give you that awareness. And then all hazards weather radios can be helpful, again, for those weather type of events. If we're out recreating in many of the recreational places that Colorado has to offer us, if you don't have cell service, you might have a radio signal. So if you do, that can be a helpful tool just to, again, to bring along. Not to say that you'll have radio signal everywhere, but I think about like, well, if I'm going camping or I'm doing this, it'd be helpful to know if like, oh, we're going to experience severe storms projected later on today, or et cetera, so that you can keep yourself as safe as you can with the information that you have. So that's my little blurb on that. And then rounding things out, next step type of things. We have like a full kind of preparedness workshop that we can do that is like a more in-depth couple hours type of thing. But in that we go over doing a risk assessment. So being able to figure out like where your vulnerabilities and where your strengths are so that you can kind of focus in and figure out like, as I create a preparedness plan for myself, where am I really strong already and where should I probably focus my efforts? Because I think if any of y'all have been on any website before and you go down the rabbit hole of like, I've clicked 7 different things and it's all really interesting in preparedness or mitigation or whatever, but I don't know how I got here. That can be overwhelming. And so that risk assessment helps you kind of focus in and break it into chunks, and then creating a plan and planning. Like what we teach is like come up with a plan for how you're going to communicate, both getting information, but also communicating to folks that you care about, how you're going to evacuate. So knowing like multiple routes, knowing how you're going to just get out in terms of like a vehicle, a ride with a neighbor, a bicycle. We had a guy one time say he was going to take his motorized wheelchair out. And I was like, if that works for you, knock yourself out, because he was very convinced no one was coming to get him from the home he lived in. So, you know, folks like have a plan and multiple plans for that transportation method. And then creating like a grab list. We've shifted to grab list instead of go bag, because a go bag requires you to maintain the items in it, swapping out food, medications, where if you have a grab list, it's a little more scalable and you can just get stuff or send a neighbor in if you're not home and say like, hey, there's a list inside my kitchen cupboard. It's got the items and where they're located at in my home. That can be a helpful thing in creating your plan. And then we have a community preparedness ambassadors program as well. If you're like, I would like to teach preparedness to others in my community or people that you know, even if they're not in your, you know, actual geographical community, we have that I can share information with Ken to get out to y'all. And then just leaning into community partners as well. There's wildfire partners. This is like very wildfire focused thinking, because that's what's on my mind lately. But, you know, there's folks that can help you like assess your home and see like, are there spaces that you can do mitigation or home hardening, and they'll give advice on that. And those are all free assessments through wildfire partners as well. That's a county organization. So, yeah, lots of different community resources and partners that can be used to kind of continue the preparedness journey. But we're happy to help with any of it that we can as well. I do all of our community preparedness and outreach stuff. So I'm your person. My last little plug, sign up for emergency notifications. You can scan this little code with your phone if you want to, and sign up, or adjust your account. And then with that, that's all I've got. I know that was a rip roaring like speed round of all that information, which is a lot, but wanted to see if there's any questions or things I can answer for now.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How does a community, if we wanted to have a public meeting, sign up for the more in-depth kind of presentation?
Oh, sure.
Like the 2-hour presentation, would you be the contact for that?
Yes, I would be the contact. And yeah, if you wanted to host one like specifically like in Netherlands or wherever, we can arrange that to host like a specific one. Because I've done one for like, I'm doing a kind of 2-part one because they wanted to break it into 2 sessions rather than do a like marathon. But yeah, just let me know and we can organize like date, time, location for all that. And I can come do those for specific groups as well by request.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll discuss it with the group. I'm just thinking we have a lot of new folks in our
Yeah.
community.
And I'll
new-
send you all as well. I have, oh, sorry.
I just new people to the mountains.
Yeah.
So they
No,
need
that'd
to
be-
kind of know what's up.
Yeah, we can definitely do like an in-depth preparedness one, or if folks wanted to do train the trainer, which is like the spirit of that is like they would train other people. So sometimes that's hit or miss, but I'm like preparedness in general, super easy to do, and very like approachable for folks. So yeah, definitely contact me if you'd like to do one of those.
Excellent. Thank you, Monica.
Yeah, of course. Other questions?
Monica, how long would that training workshop take? How
Yeah,
long
that
would it
one
be?
takes, I will say the general preparedness one, depending on like the engagement and questions in the group, I say that it takes, I think like 2.5 hours or 3 hours. But it very much can vary. I think I have one that I'm doing it in a 2-part one, and I'm like, I don't think we're gonna get through all of it in 2.5 hour sessions. But that's because they've been very active with questions and discussion, which has been really wonderful. So I would say setting aside like 3 hours, and then if we get out early, that's then a treat for people type of thing. And that includes like breaks and stuff throughout it as well. And I can also do, if you're like, that's never gonna sell, people aren't going to that, I can do like a 30-minute abbreviated one as well. That's really like the cliff notes. But if you're looking for like an intro, like we just want people to come and do this, it could be like a half an hour to 40-minute presentation where we don't go in depth of like all the alert stuff, all that, but it's just here's the main alerts we want you to get. Here's the preparedness steps we want you to take. And then move on with it. So that could be like 30 minutes to an hour if that was of interest too. So we can kind of like scale stuff if there's a particular time frame or thing that you're looking for, where we can either like scale up or down depending on a couple of the different like slide decks that I have.
Monica, I actually attended a train the trainer
Yeah,
in January and have not yet gotten started on what to do. So
that's okay.
I'm wondering, should I contact you, or do you have just overall suggestions for how to get going?
Yeah, I think with that, like, you know, how we talk about of like setting that last unit of it, of like starting to set like, okay, what's a group that you might want to target, and maybe have a point person there to reach out to them of like, okay, hey, I'd like to do a train the trainer with you all, or if you want to do it as like a public, anyone can sign up. Doing that and just starting to like advertise it in ways so that could even be through like this network of folks, right? And those channels, and then finding a location for it, and hosting it. And even if just a couple people come, like I think that's a couple more people that would know information that didn't before. But yeah, if you want to talk through like specific strategies, we can certainly like either do a phone call or a like chat like this, video chat, and we can go over kind of some of those planning pieces as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions? Alrighty. Well, if you all do have anything that comes up, please feel free to email me. My email is on the screen here. It's mweber at bouldercounty.org. And I will respond to you there. Or you can give me a call. I'm like, what is my phone number? But yeah, give me a call. That's in my email signature as well. So Ken's got that, and can share that along if folks need it.
I've got can you share the slide deck with us?
Yes, yeah, I'll share the slide deck, and I was thinking about this yesterday. I've got a couple like just like supplemental materials, like all the alert and warning stuff we talked about. We have it in like a chart form and then a really long 3-page chart form. So I'll send those, and those are also, I have English and Spanish versions of those and screen reader capable for the English ones. So if folks need that auditory part, I've got those set up as well. So I will get those to Ken to distribute if that works, Ken.
That works for me. I also have a copy of the flyer for signing up for the Reachwell app. And I think as a follow-up information, I'm trying to put together maybe one paragraph, not more than 3 or 4 sentences, so everybody will read it. And we have 2 ways, actually now 3 ways of getting this out. I would get that out to this group and the entire group. And I would get that out to the folks in Jamestown with a blast email from the town clerk, and I'll also post it on the Jamestown ward and Bar K bulletin board. So even though you may only have a relatively few people here, I think the results of your this presentation will go out to a lot more people than we have, attending this meeting.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. I appreciate y'all so much for doing that, because I think by you like educating yourself, you then become a super great resource for the rest of the people that you know. And so even if folks take one little tidbit of what you have to say to them, that's still increasing our preparedness as a county, which then makes us stronger overall as a community. So I appreciate you all a ton for being here, because I know giving up time to do preparedness when it's not always top of mind for folks. I would say it's like rarely top of mind for most folks that I talk to, really means a lot to us as an office, because it just helps to raise that awareness and our community strength. So
thank you, Monica. It's a really good presentation. Appreciate the information.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, I will stop sharing this then. And yeah, it was great to meet you all. Definitely keep me in the loop if there's other stuff that I can join, attend, support you all at community events or whatever it is. Because happy to do that and be able to be that kind of expertise support on some of these topics. So
thank you.
Alrighty. Take care, y'all.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you. It was worth waiting for.
Good. I'm glad. See y'all.
Okay, so next on our agenda is, I first want to welcome Pam in, and also I want to introduce Betty Abel, who's joined us. She is operations at the Netherland Food Pantry. And I realized late this morning that I had forgotten to send the link to Audie. I sent it out to you guys again, and then I forgot to send it to Betty and Audie at the pantry. So Betty has joined us. So thank you, Betty, for being on with us. And the next topic on our agenda is discussion of future in-person events. Ken, since you're already on, you want to take over as?
No, you're doing fine. There's only 3 things on the agenda, so it's kind of easy.
Okay, so we can go around. Ken, do you have anything?
Okay, actually I do. I can bring you up to date on the mitigation work that is being done in Jamestown. I may have mentioned this before, but last year the town got, is the beneficiary of a grant through the Watershed Center that comes from the St. Vrain and Left Hand Water Conservation District. And as a result of that, there are about 45 private residential properties in Jamestown. And these properties vary from small properties, maybe that are 10,000 or 12,000 square feet, up until those that are like multi acres, acreage, and cutting down a huge number of trees, chipping the branches, the slash, and they're about, I think, they're about half done at this point. They probably will finish up this summer, depending upon the availability of the crews, which would also have to respond to a fire if there was one in James or in Boulder County or other places. It's the left-hand crew. And moving along, it's moving along very nicely. And I think there's probably about 12 of the 45 properties that are completely finished, cleaned up, and ready to go. And that's where we are on that. And we're also participating in a canopy grant that the county is working on for other fire mitigation activities. And these are things that we're able to take advantage of because we are a municipality, but also the county is leading this, so it would also be a benefit to unincorporated Boulder County.
Okay. So that was kind of an update for Jamestown. Do we have a discussion of future and in-person events? Do we have any discussion around that? Is that for IMA, Pam? That was on the agenda. Next. So I think we were originally talking about doing a picnic in June, and because of my personal housing crisis, I was supposed to be preparing that. And I have said I really don't have the capacity to do that until I get that sorted. So I would like to have that tabled, the picnic, because I think what we discussed was maybe instead of doing a picnic to kind of a reunion picnic, maybe doing an event a little bit later when I have some more capacity to invite new people. Is that what we discussed, Pam and Ken?
Yes, we did. We discussed that June 24th was going to be a day honoring you and all your work for the IMA over the past 13 years, 12 years, and also honoring Colleen, who is getting married June 9th. So two honorees, and we're going to have lunch in Netherland to make it easy for Dawn and Colleen. That's what we discussed, and I hope it's good with everybody else here. People I mentioned it to are pretty happy about that and say it just seems extremely appropriate.
So I can give you an update on my housing situation. I got a lead by word of mouth, and it was someone that I work with here who owns properties. We were first on the list, but their tenants decided to stay, but they have a property manager. So she said to her property manager, who is Wendy Williams, who owns a number of properties, keep your ears open. I can't afford Wendy's properties in Netherland. They're too small and too expensive, and that's not a problem. I mean, it's the market. It just is the market. I have been running down probably, just for a background, two leads a day at least for a couple of weeks. And they were all, it's complicated. So Wendy kept her ears open. She was at a real estate conference in Denver. And she was there with someone who used to live up here and on the Peak to Peak, not necessarily in Netherland, who owns a cabin on Pactolus. So if you don't know Pactolus, it is off South Beaver. You go down Highway 72 in Coal Creek, South Beaver cuts off, and then Pactola splits off, stays on South Boulder Creek, and South Beaver cuts through the mountains. So it's there, and we're going to meet the owner there tomorrow morning. There is a teacher who is moving out mid-June, and we're hoping it'll work. It's within my price range, and it's 770 square feet. It's small, but it's a place here where I could continue to work in Nederland and commute. And Gilpin will get another refugee from Nederland in Boulder County. So I'm hoping that it works out. It's not by any means a done deal, but it's the first one that has been even in my price range and a doable situation, potentially doable situation. So we'll have to see how it works out. But again, that's word of mouth and working it for like 6 weeks. I've been working on housing. Also working for my custodian in this building, trying to get him a place. Other people I know, if it doesn't work for me, we're just spreading the information out. But it looks like I have a good shot at being able to stay and reorder life. So that's a good thing, because it's very overwhelming to think about leaving your whole life of 30 years and packing that up in 6 weeks. And moving out of state to someplace, an more unfamiliar place. So hopefully I'm just hoping it works out.
Well,
So-
we all benefit if you stay.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. I would like to stay.
That's the selfish view. I also want to say that we hope
Well,
it works
all
out
along, I've
the
been
very,
like, okay,
the very best way for you.
if something opens, this is where I want to be, but if it doesn't, I have to be prepared. So a different kind of preparedness. So yeah. So thank you for that, Pam. Is there anything else on future in-person events? Then would we like to plan a meeting later in the summer to, I don't know, I really would like to do a community event. What did you guys think about that? When she mentioned that, that hit me as there are so many new folks in Nederland, at least, new to the mountains, new to our community from other places in the country, not just the state, who are pretty clueless about our weather, and they just don't have situational awareness. I would really like to see more situational awareness. But that has to be, somebody has to tell them in a kind way, hopefully before anything happens. So I don't know, I would kind of like to look at a future date, maybe in July, to get in touch with Monica. What do you think? We could host it at the community center. What do you think, Ken?
I'm thinking that maybe we try to do something dually. Rose, you're still on here listening, right? Yeah, there you are. Okay. Because if we work this through the IMA, we can say, okay, we'll have 2 dates.
Okay.
And then in 2 different places, which would allow people who were
North County.
within the county in 2 places. I think there wouldn't be a problem in getting the Jamestown Town Hall for one of those. All we need is to get it organized and try to get the information out to everybody in the mountains and Boulder County and beyond.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be through IMA. I mean, you could do it as Jamestown, we could do it as Nederland, but I'm thinking we might actually get more traction, maybe in Nederland, if we do it through the IMA versus another town meeting. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying that if it comes from IMA, say, hey, here's these 2 things that are going to be happening for your benefit on one day or another, okay, and in 2 different places. So if it's not convenient for you, if you're out of town or you're working that day, here's an alternative place where they're going to have it maybe a week later, or whatever, and see if that wouldn't cover a much broader area for people who are interested. It's hard to get people interested. That's the problem.
I think that a good way to get people interested, at least from my neck of the woods, because we're really pretty up on resilience and emergency, this and that and the other thing. You know, people are really on top of it here in Gold Hill. But I would really like to see this event feature Tegan, if you don't mind, because I think that's really, really, really important. And I think that I mean, look at how many people came. I mean, we're so sick of hearing about emergency notifications, especially when it doesn't really work in the mountains, you know, which is what we've always, you know, that's our past experience, you know, and so I think that that you could target the new people. I mean, you need to target the new people, and I'm totally for using IMA as a, you know, use the IMA name. But I think that what would really draw at least old people is Tegan discussing and giving a presentation, because that is very much an emergency. So it's an ongoing emergency. So that's my 2 cents.
Here's something else that I'm thinking about. It's just come up in the last week, so I don't know if you guys have heard about the documentary Elemental, about wildfire preparedness, in relation to all the massive wildfires in this country. And it's been showing around Boulder and Denver. I haven't gotten to it, but I've heard some good praise from neighbors. So I reached out to the I guess the producers to see if we could get it in Nederland, and they said, oh, Nederland's already talked to us about it. And I reached out to the Ned Fire Department. I have a friend there, and he said, yeah, I think the fire department is already in on this. So what it sounds like to me is the Ned Fire Department may have been the one who initiated, but there is talk about getting the film showing at the Backdoor Theater in Nederland.
Absolutely. And I know they would be down for that.
Which, like, I don't know if the discussion is showing it over the regular Friday, Saturday. I don't know if it's on a different day of the week because I'm not in on that discussion, but they're looking at a date in June is what I know.
You know, so here's the thing about Ned Fire, and it's the only negative thing I have to say about them, which is they're bad communicators.
Mm-hmm.
They're bad organizers. They know what they want to do, and they're like, oh, we're going to do it this week on Thursday. Didn't you know? And I'm like, no. There's no flyer. We need to have this on the website. There's no lead time. So, you know, I'm already thinking a date in June, we need to be on that now. There needs to be a flyer, it needs to be on social media. We need to start pushing, but marketing is not what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that.
But it can be teamed up, you know, and, you know, it's kind of like through the grapevine right now, you know, it's not the most official information. My friend said, I think, you know, that fires on this. What I do know is that the producers, the film people know that there's a request from Nederland to show the film.
So
that's what I know for sure.
To reach out, unless you would like to. Would you like to do this organizing, Tegan?
I can reach out to them because I have already, like, I was the one that said, hey, can we get the film? They're like, oh, we're already going to bring the film to Nederland.
Okay, so but I mean, we need to reach out to them, the fire department, and find out what's happening, because what happens is you reach out, they go, oh yeah, and then it gets dropped because they get a call, or there's just lots of things.
I can follow up with my friend. It's only been like 48 hours since I sent the text saying, hey, the fire department interested in this.
Okay.
To give him like another couple days to circle back to me without pushing him. And
okay.
But my thinking is if it's showing in Nederland in June, it could be a very good lead in to something else.
Totally. Yes.
Because it's gonna be the motivating, like, hey, there's a problem, but here's your solution.
Yes.
It's not way out there. It's not 50 miles away. It's in your backyard.
Exactly. Okay, thank you. So be in touch with me, and maybe you can copy me, and if once things get into an email form, although again, it's really hard. I have found that communication with fire department, unless I like assail people that are in my phone with texts and calls, it's like, hey, it's done. Really need somebody to call me back here. It is challenging to get them to call back.
Well, let me see if I can find out from the phone people who it is.
Okay.
That reached out to them.
Okay. If it's the fire inspector, Andrew, then he's easy to communicate with. He is very responsive. Some of the other admins it's a little tougher. And
Okay.
we're in a challenging time there right now. So,
Yeah, I mean, I honestly didn't know, like, was it Kayla that was like arranging this with them? Like, I have no idea.
Kayla's great at hosting. She doesn't arrange stuff.
Okay. Okay.
So that people would reach out to her and she'll go, oh yeah, no problem. And then they'll even forget to tell us, community center, that they're having a special event in the theater. So I'm kind of the person
Who
that
is it at the community center that should be the contact person for
Me.
like you? Okay.
me,
That's easy.
or if they're doing it,
Hmm.
yeah, reach out to me and then I'll let Kurt know. It's like, because it's very rare that something would be going on. Like a Tuesday night would be horrible. That's a board meeting night. I mean, there's the regular meeting night. So yeah, reach out to me first and then I'll loop Kurt in for scheduling to say these are the best nights where you're going to get more attendance. Usually a Thursday is a great night for
Thursday.
something like that.
And I even wonder if it would be nice to have it showed 2 times. If we get word out, I'm putting together a list. If there was a good showing from all those different lists, it would be a lot of people. Obviously, who knows? But it seems like this is relevant. It's got a lot of good praise. It's current. It could be worth showing twice.
Okay.
Some people who are like, hey, can't do that week. I'm out of town. Maybe I'll try and get to it. The other showing.
So you and I can talk more offline about it, but I think it's a great idea. I like the idea. I love it. Thank you, Pam.
And an additional thing that I had thought was maybe happening in June was I thought that there was going to be another OEM or ODM training at Left Hand, but I'm looking on their calendar and I don't see it. So does anybody else know about that? I should have asked Monica. I didn't think of it when she was on.
Just email her.
Yeah. But if we
And
could,
let us know.
if we're going to do something in Jamestown, either, I don't know if we would be able to show that film or not in Jamestown, but if we can coordinate dates so that if people want to go to all of the events, that we're not overlapping too much. So Ken, you and I can talk about Jamestown, and then we'll coordinate with you, Dawn, about when things are happening in Netherlands.
Okay. Awesome.
I just put in a link to the Wildfire Film website. They have like a 2-minute trailer there. If you want to see it, it's in the chat.
Okay. Can you email that to the Google group, Tegan?
Yeah.
That link? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, all you'll get is kind of the background information and the 2-minute trailer and like the who's who and helping to produce the movie. You won't get the whole movie, but.
How long is the movie?
I don't think it's crazy long. I'm trying to remember. I feel like I saw something and I want to say it's between 1.5 hours and 2, but I don't think it's 2.
Okay, so that it's the normal length film then.
I think it's a normal length film.
Okay.
About the film.
Okay. So Backdoor Theater might want to show it on a weekend because they're in a situation, film has changed, as you all know, over the pandemic to basically streaming. The studios release everything on streaming. They've made it impossible for all but the largest corporate theaters to stay in business, like AMC, et cetera. So they charge huge take on the box office to the theaters. And because people can stream at home, they just sit at home and in their pajamas instead of coming out to pay money at a theater.
Yeah.
And so their attendance is less than half. It's probably a third of what it was pre-pandemic. So Backdoor Theater is struggling, and one of the things they're doing is doing more and more special events. And a lot of them are free, but that kind of it serves the role as a nonprofit in a community center to do these things for free and to serve the community. So they might, if they're not going to get anything, a lot of the summer releases are these big, they're geared toward the youth and the younger crowd. And it's a lot of times it's Disney films and they take like 60 to 80% of the box office, which makes it impossible So, when you pay the ticket price,
Mhm.
over half of that goes to, over that, that percentage goes back to the studio. It's huge.
Mhm.
So I think they might just choose to say, no, thank you. We're not going to get that Disney film. We're going to show this because it benefits our community.
Yeah. And when I reached out originally to the film people, I wanted to know, like what it would cost. They didn't give me that because they're like, we're already talking about it. But my original idea is, working with a couple different nonprofits, I think it could easily get paid for.
Mhm.
A little bit presumptuous, but I think it could easily get paid for and not necessarily have to charge admission, or like maybe in that sense, all the admission could go to the Backdoor Theater. I don't know. I'm just brainstorming here as to how.
Down the road, we'll find it. Yeah, we'll start with fire. You and I can take it offline and we can get back with everybody because I think it's a great plan for
Mhm.
engagement.
And it could be like following it. Hey, we're having another event where we're going to talk more about,
Yes.
since we've got them sitting in front of us.
Yep. Yep. And we can put Andrew up there or one of the other guys and say, hey, here we are. We're doing this. Please attend this meeting to find out more
Mhm.
about how you can engage, how you can prepare,
Mhm.
what this looks like. Great idea. Love it. All right. So Tegan, you want to go ahead with your update?
Yeah. I would say things on the sports shooting side are kind of up in the air right now. As you guys know, Gary retired from the county. He was the sports shooting lead. He passed the information on to someone else who put their resignation in. I don't know quite how public it is, but they're looking to hire a new staff member that they were not expecting to have to hire right now. So they have a staff member who has some history on the issue, working on it, but she's not like permanently dedicated to it. She's filling in basically. Then you have the 3 commissioners who are, I have been told it's one of their top 3 priorities. I've also told them that on the public side, it doesn't look like that. However, I've been informed that yes, they are really working on it. They are concerned about it. What I think will be really helpful is the whole sports shooting partnership. So that's, Larimer County, Gilpin County, Clear Creek County, Boulder County, CPW, and the Forest Service are going to have another reconvening of the partnership. And they're currently trying to pin everyone down on a date where they can get in the same room and talk. Which I think they will come out with a lot more clarity, hopefully, between like what we know is happening, but where to go from here too. I think you guys saw someone who put out the email from the Forest Service requesting more comments on the closures under the Dingle Act for basically Clear Creek, Gilpin, Grand County. Because the Forest Service's shooting range in Clear Creek County is coming online this summer. Gilpin and Clear Creek have put out their contract for bidding for their shooting range. So I think they're hoping to have it open by next year, which means by next summer, Boulder County is literally the only county on the Front Range who will not have a public shooting range, and hence will have no closures of our 80,000 acres of unsafe lands for sport shooting, which is a significant concern. How that can be remedied is a bit up in the air right now, I would say. They're still looking at a location in northern Boulder County. Gary's coming back to take them on a field trip there in July. Problem is, the way the 2019 Forest Service Plan Amendment was written, Boulder County actually needs 2 shooting ranges. If they open the one in very northern Boulder County, it is only going to close northern Boulder County and southern Larimer. It is not going to affect southern Boulder County, which is where most of the shooting issues are. So that could possibly be the worst outcome because it would leave only the southern half of Boulder County open.
Oh my gosh.
So right now it's not really clear how that's going to get resolved. I know that one of our county commissioners has been talking to Monty at the Forest Service level. Don't quite know where they're going. with that. The county has realized they thoroughly pissed the Forest Service off with those local closures. And hence the Forest Service is not in a very cooperative mood right now, nor is CPW. The Forest Service has basically said, you know, if we chose to, we can decide not to enforce those local closures that the county passed. There is nothing requiring us to comply. It's our land. However, it sounds like they are, at least at the district level, willing to comply, but they need to figure out signage, no shooting signage that will be used across the Front Range, not just here and there in Boulder County. Hence the delay in signage, because they need like their official, like, this is the template for the future. It hasn't gotten there yet, to the best of my knowledge. So I know the county has no shooting signs up on like the county land leading into those local closures, but as far as I know, they're not at the point where the Forest Service has gotten to put any signage up, and probably won't for another, if I had to take a guess, another few months. So it's a bit messy. I'm hoping they'll come out with some better understandings after their partnership meeting. And hopefully Boulder County will get a staff member dedicated to figuring this issue out.
Thank you, Tegan. That's a great update. Not necessarily encouraging, but it's a really good update. Thank you.
Yeah.
Tegan, the figure is 80,000 acres where people can roam and shoot.
There's 80,000 acres that was identified by the Forest Service as being unsafe for sport shooting. That
Wow.
is currently open for sport shooting in Boulder County.
That's
so there
a
would
lot.
be a lot of acreage still remaining after the 80,000 is closed, but they haven't identified it as unsafe. And from my reading, it's basically the harder to get to places. Like, it takes some serious commitment to want to go shoot there, which people aren't interested in. So I don't think people are going to be trekking out, you know, probably here and there, but I don't see a lot of people trekking out to go shoot in these other places.
Used to be that was a draw
Yeah.
Oh,
back in the old days.
Yeah.
now it's like, you mean I have to hike a quarter mile? I'm gonna go drive somewhere else.
Yeah.
Really?
Wow. Pam, do you have anything out from Gold Hill? Were you done?
Yeah,
Is
Mary
that all
Beth.
you got? I mean, all you got. That was like huge. Thank you. Was there
Yeah.
anything else that you wanted to add on any other topic or level? Tegan?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking to Pam. I'm just sitting
Yep.
here listening.
Yeah, I was, and then I switched back. I realized I didn't want to cut you off if you had anything else to
Well,
add.
I guess I have a couple questions for you guys. Are you interested in hearing any of what's happening with the Gross Reservoir area in southern Boulder County?
Yes.
Because I can provide that, but if it's not of interest, I don't need to provide it.
No, I think that's important because that's conjunct with Netherland.
It is.
Okay,
And it's gonna impact everything else. So everything pushes
it does.
out.
Yes.
Right, yeah. And also, you know, we also play with partners a little bit over the border. So I think it's quite applicable.
Okay. Well, I guess because I am on the tech board as well, so we're tied in with all that stuff. I guess on the side, just, you know, talking about where borders overlap, Coal Creek Canyon is working on a new CWPP there, so they're getting their community involved. They're kind of at the beginning stage, but as far as we're talking about wildfires, they're on it too. And then as far as Gross Dam itself, Denver Water is plowing forward, kind of. They seem to do kind of whatever the hell they think they want to do, regardless of whether it was in their plans or not. Like, hey, we're just going to build another road there because it's convenient. We didn't tell you we were going to, but we're going to do it anyway. We're going to build some more administrative tents up there because we need them. Yeah, it wasn't our plan, doesn't matter. Problem is, there's basically no one who's really on the ground willing to enforce anything. They have FERC, who is supposed to be overseeing this whole project. FERC apparently has a weekly Zoom call with them and comes out once a month. And we, as citizens, have been pushing our congressional representatives to try and get FERC on the ground more. Boulder County has also put in a request to get FERC on the ground more. So far, the answer has been crickets. No one else really seems to have the legal ability to oversee Denver Water. What we've been stuck with from federal representatives is they say we need a list of what Denver Water is actually violating in their FERC permits. And Boulder County goes, hey, we don't have the time. Can you do this for us? So we are looking into, can we come up with a short list that will at least get Congress and FERC interested and boots on the ground to kind of oversee Denver Water and maybe rein them in a bit and keep them more in alignment with what they said they were going to do. But right now they're just, you know, people complain about lights and they come back and say, oh, well, it's OSHA requirements. Sorry. You know, yeah, we do need a stadium light in the parking lot at night. The people over there, North Shore, Gross Dam Road, that area is really suffering. They've had it bad. It's expected to get worse in the next couple years, with 2024 being the worst year for noise, traffic, construction. They haven't even started the concrete batch plant yet. That's supposed to, I think, start construction this year. So meanwhile, Boulder County has their mitigation fund advisory group trying to decide how to divvy up the $5 billion that Denver Water gave to Boulder County for the residents. So they've had their third meeting. They get one more meeting to decide how they're divvying it up. It looks like right now they're going to go off of the environmental study that was commissioned by Boulder County that rated neighbors on a scale of 0 to 5 on noise, light, and air quality impacts, and that the funds are going to be distributed according to those ratings that households received. So the households that have like 1s and 2s are not going to get as much money as the households at like 4 and almost 5. They're still trying to iron out some of the details on so part of the problem is there's going to be 2 rounds of funding. One round of funding now for everyone impacted, and then they need to hold money back for everyone who's going to be impacted during tree removal. Denver Water has a tree removal plan that they call final, but then they say, well, it's not really final. Our contractor's going to decide what they want to do. Mm-hmm. So as of their last plan, which we know that they don't really like to follow their plans, they've got about 80% of the trees coming out of Lazy Z onto Magnolia and then taking a left on 119, heading down towards Gilpin County, and down through US 6, I believe. So it would hit Netherlands' southern boundary. The people on Lazy Z would bear the most of the brunt because that road, it has no easement. It cannot be widened. They were talking about 14-wheeler logging trucks. They also think they can get them up and down the steep side of Winnegar Ridge, which is not actually a road. So they have yet to figure that out. We're advocating that if they are going to do that, that they just use the old haul route and go straight down. Basically, it follows Lazy Z and there's a gate and then it continues straight down to the reservoir so that we don't have a massive new road across Winnegar Ridge by the time they're done. So that we might have some traction on. Could be considered a small win. But yeah, right now there's a lot of people suffering, especially around Gross Dam Road. And then we've got trucks that are too big going up Flagstaff and getting stuck and blocking the road for hours before they can get towed out. So Boulder County has made some serious efforts to get that remedied with more signage, trying to get a notification put on the mapping system so the truckers don't take that road. And then they've got a similar problem sort of on Crescent Park Drive, which unfortunately is just over the line in Jeffco, and that county doesn't care. But they've got all of their construction traffic going up and down Crescent Park Drive between Highway 72 and Gross Dam Road right now. And those people kind of have a living hell and they have no one to go to because they're not Boulder County residents and their county doesn't care. So Denver Water's almost done with the reconfiguration of the intersection at Gross Dam Road and Highway 72. And all that traffic, construction traffic, should go then, once that intersection is done in June, from Highway 72 down Gross Dam Road. So then the people on Gross Dam Road get to live with it for the next 5 years.
Really unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Boulder County they're holding a couple community meetings with the commissioners, and the feedback, well, basically since they signed the settlement agreement, as residents, we felt they've been trying to brush all responsibility off of them, and they've been really hesitant to try and enforce anything. Partly, I think, because of the legal agreement. Partly, I think they don't want to deal with it. It seems the feedback I heard from the last community meeting is they're still trying to shirk responsibility, and they're figuring out that, man, this is not like going away. Like, this is getting worse, this project. I don't think they really realized what they were saying yes to.
Yikes. Okay. Anything else, Tegan? Any more good news for us?
Well, I have a question. This is more of a question. I'm curious how many of you, I guess, especially like, Jamestown, Gold Hill, Ward, I know we don't have anyone from Ward here right now, is aware of the Forest Service's NEPA process for the St. Rainforest Health Project.
What process?
The NEPA process, the environmental
NEPA,
review
yeah.
implement process.
That concerns the northern half of the IMA area.
Yeah.
It stops right at the Gold Hill line.
Mhm.
So I don't think that most of Gold Hill is aware.
Okay.
I am, but
We can probably reach out to, I don't know that we have a representative from Allen's Park right now either. Allen's Park Ward, Bill probably is completely aware. Bill Ellis, he probably knows, and he's not on today. But we could reach out to Bill because he's Raymond Riverside.
More, I'm just curious, who is this going to catch by surprise? Because it has come to my attention that Ward is pretty much out of the loop, unfortunately. And I think the other areas are more in the loop from what I've gathered.
Okay.
But
I tried to connect them with Ward. I'm not sure it worked.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I've heard. The Ward just kind of likes to keep to itself. And for better or worse, I think it's probably a double-edged sword. But yeah, I was just curious in particular about them because they're totally surrounded, and I don't think they realize
I can reach out to
had a chance to participate, and the chance is very quickly going away.
So Peter, he worked at our front desk at Town Hall. He's was our admin assistant, and now he's our public engagement person for Town of Nederland. And he's very key in the admin at Town Hall, and he has a place in Ward. He and Ari Goodman, who many of you know, she works now with Mental Health Partners, formerly with CPWD, Center for People with Disabilities, and they have a home in Ward. So let me reach out to Peter and see if he's aware. If he is not, I'm going to put Peter in touch with you.
Yeah, that sounds good.
As our engagement person, he is personally and engaged as well as with his job. So
great.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're not familiar with it, it's a massive amount of documentation to just blindly start diving into. But I hope that they I'm happy to provide them, or if they're aware of it, great, but have some understanding of this project before it's finalized.
Okay. All right. So if he reaches out to you, Tegan, you'll know why. All right. Pam, did you have anything?
Yeah, Mary Beth prepared a report for us. So let me just bring it up. Okay. Take me a minute here. I just need to find it. Sorry. Not find it, but get to it. Okay. Gold Hill report. Here we go. Okay. News from Gold Hill. At the Gold Hill town meeting, there was concern about ATVs on Switzerland Trail. Switzerland Trail also has its own little organization put out by people of Gold Hill who are very concerned about sport shooting. So in terms of the ATV issues, we're supposed to contact the county commissioners, call into the sheriff's office. There's an organization called Gold Hill for Safe Switzerland.com that I would really like to have them in touch with, or at least on your list, Tegan. Then there was a big hoo-ha with our fire department because our longtime chief finally retired. There was no choice. And so now we're giving retirement parties for him, and new board members were elected, and this has been a big thing in the town. Let's see. Then we can take more ham radio people. Let's see. Boulder Watershed Collective, in collaboration with many partners, held a wildfire awareness day on May 6th at the Gold Hill store with tours of mitigation work. Both residences and the forests were offered, as well as the opportunity for residents to have their questions answered regarding mitigation. Partners included Boulder County OEM, Colorado State Forest Service, Cyclists for Community, Gold Hill Town Meeting, Gold Hill Fire Protection District, Gold Hill Mountain Stewards, Gold Hill for Safe Switzerland Trail, Longment Boulder Valley Conservation Districts, Neighborhood Angels Foundation, Sugarloaf Mountain Works, and Wildfire Partners. And the Neighborhood Angels Foundation is a new foundation founded by my neighbor across the street, who wants to help people who are struggling. So she should really be in touch with the new person who took over Colleen's job, and I told her that, and so hopefully she is. Gold Hill Museum will open for the season Memorial Day weekend. There will be annual 4th of July pancake breakfast and parade. Over Labor Day, there will be a celebration of the 175th anniversary of the Gold Hill School.
Wow.
And finally, the Gold Hill Town Meeting publicized the public comment period regarding shooting ranges. This period started May 5th and goes for 60 days. And we're looking into having another ham radio class. And let's see, we have new beer glasses and the color is gold. And we're looking to sell things online instead of in person. And the school is 150 years old. The PTO is just starting to plan a carnival during the Labor Day weekend, hoping to attract old students, if you know of any. We're going to celebrate the chief again, the retired chief, as he is the one who co-owns the Gold Hill store, Gold Hill Inn. It will be at the Gold Hill Inn. And there was another party for him there as well. Then we have our spring cleanup, which we've talked about in the IMA in past years. As always, the county supports recycling, reusing, repurposing, but we have to pay for the dumpsters. So there will be fees. We've talked about that here at the IMA before. Let's see. And somehow I got offered as a town resource for weeds. I used to be the town weed coordinator and native plants. And I have done research on edible native plants for landscaping, which I'm happy to talk about. And that's it. Okay, we're done. Let's see. Okay. Marianne.
All right. Rose, did you have anything to add for Jamestown?
I think
From
that
what
Ken probably has a lot more information, but
he already covered, yeah, Ken already, I think, gave you a report, right, Ken? Did you have more?
I can't change it now.
You can add to,
Well,
say some more.
I could just say, or we, I was excited that the town board has agreed to help out with some ARPA funds to the fire department, like to get new tires for the trucks. There was something else too from the, well, and we're having, Ken coordinates, we're having our trash day, dumpster day, which everybody's
right.
very excited about. I don't know, what else, Ken?
I don't know how excited you can get about going, about taking your trash someplace.
I think a
or
lot of people are
besides-
excited
Very
about it.
excited.
Well, it's going to be a social event. So, yeah, that's for the 16th and 17th of June. And Pam, you didn't mention when your cleanup day is.
You're on mute, Pam.
Sorry, that's because Mary Beth didn't put that in there. It's usually in June. It's usually the third, let's see, the third weekend in June, but
Well, we'll be competing.
probably around the 17th, 18th, I'm guessing.
We can
Yeah.
have a trash. We can have a collection contest.
So Netherlands Cleanup Day is the first weekend in June. I'll give you some brief net updates here. So that's Saturday. Is that the 3rd? It is Saturday, the 3rd of June. I think it starts at 8. I think it's 8 to noon or whenever the dumpsters are full. And we're having a meeting to finalize who's going to be there next week. But I know Shred It is going to be there for documents. The charge is $20 per truckload / trailer load. If there's like a huge truck and huge trailer, then it's way more. I mean, they will, Nikki Dunn, who is our parks manager from Public Works, she will assess. She's in charge of that event. So we will have a meeting on that to lock down who's going to be there. I think they're going to have the better shredder people there again, which so you can bring mattresses, cushions, et cetera, furniture cushions. Unfortunately, and Goodwill will be on site to take usable furniture. It is the same week as the Mountain Forum for Peace sale that Tegan will be, is I'm sure still part of. And hopefully they're doing some furniture this year. There's some things they won't take, but that's our big recycle, reuse, share with your neighbors, except Mountain Forum for Peace gets the money event in Netherlands, where we're so glad that they're doing the sale again. And maybe Tegan can even update us on that. But that sale is it's the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Is that correct?
Yep.
Drop off begins Sunday before Memorial Day. And the hours on drop off days are 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. where there will be no drop off on Monday, Memorial Day. And then there will be drop off on Tuesday and Wednesday, no drop off on Thursday as they set up and arrange everything final, they do the final arrangements for the sale. And then it'll be Friday, Saturday, with price Sunday morning, and then a brief shutdown, and then the free for all.
Take it
Before
away.
they shut it down and load the trucks that they have arrangements with to donate. So it's a great way to reuse and recycle on the peak to peak. So that's what I had for that. We don't have a name. I don't have a name, at least, for Colleen's old job yet. I don't know. I believe they've hired, but that she is not yet, he or she is not yet in office.
Yeah, Colleen said that she does have, they are.
They are?
That's what I was sure that she said, that they did have a new person in the job, and Colleen was pleased with the quality of the person.
They have someone in the job, but she's not in the building. So they have this office here, but the
Oh.
information is like not up on the door. The person does have a phone number and they'll answer the call.
Oh.
But I have not yet met this person. The county is pretty bad. They're good at coming in, the AAA, but they never like introduce us and say, hey, this is the new person. So we have not yet been able to partner. We, as in Netherlands Area Seniors Food Pantry, Community Center. I would just like to share that we had a lovely donation to Community Center, Seniors, Pantry, Holistic Homestead. A woman who used to live up here, who had cared for her parents in Texas. Then they got devastated by a hurricane, moved them back up to Boulder. And then she bought a home to caretake her parents in Boulder. Got it completely accessible. And then her dad passed unexpectedly. But she donated the equipment to to those organizations. So we were able to take Betty let me take the pantry van and Reba from Netherlands Seniors down. We got shelf-stable food, stuff for diabetics. We got wheelchairs, walkers, a recliner and a motorized wheelchair that I was able to get to someone in the community who needed it. And it's just been fantastic collaboration and other things so just a reminder to everyone that we do have, this is a little bit on the human services side, but we have the lending closet that used to be under Boulder County here in the community center. We've maintained that once they let it go. And it's under Holistic Homestead, but we keep some equipment. So we have people sign the waiver from Arwen in Gilpin County, where that's located in the professional building when we loan out equipment. And it can be permanent, it can be just for a short term. So we can facilitate that. Yeah, Pam.
So is Holistic Homestead now part of the Netherland town government?
No.
Nonprofit? Because I know it was just Arwen's before.
It's just Darwin's. It's just her
Oh.
little nonprofit.
Oh,
We just
okay.
house some of her equipment here at the community center. Have people sign her waiver. We're just a facilitator, a pass through for her. So people
Sweet.
don't have to
Okay,
drive all the way
thanks.
down to Highway 46 if they're coming from North County and Boulder. Because
Awesome.
Arwinda, we could care less what county you're from. If you need it, you need it. So,
Awesome.
yeah, so we just.
So you should be in touch. I should put my friend Liz Vanek, my neighbor, who started the Mountain Angel Foundation.
Mhm.
I put Colleen through Colleen. I put her in touch with the person who took over from Colleen, but it sounds like she really needs to be in touch with you guys. So who should she contact?
Why don't you have her contact me first?
Okay.
And then I can put her in touch with Arwen if she's
Oh, I can put her directly in touch with Arwen too.
you can put her in touch with Arwen, but it depends on, yeah, totally. So we just have what we have here. Right now we got crutches, one walker, 4 wheelchairs, transfer seats, it seems to ebb and flow in all or nothing. So sometimes we have no wheelchairs and 5 walkers. Sometimes we have no walkers and all transfer chairs. It depends on what the needs are at the moment. And
I should invite her to come and talk for 5 minutes at the next meeting.
that would be great.
Because, yeah, it would, because she definitely is doing this for everybody in the mountains.
Okay.
It's not just Gold Hill. Okay.
Well, that's really
I'll do
great because then we have us in the middle, somebody in North County and somebody south in Gilpin. So that's wonderful.
Oh, that's so great.
So that
Yeah,
just
her husband was. Go ahead.
no, that just spans it. That's awesome. That's what we want.
Wonderful. I will do that.
I know that there are a few things that are available of that, some of that kind of equipment at the Jamestown Fire Department. I don't think that it's particularly organized, but my sweetheart just had surgery a couple months ago, and through one of the firefighters was able to borrow like some crutches and walker and some things like that. And the Elks in Boulder, I think also
Yes,
you
they
can
do.
borrow some equipment.
They do. They do for sure. I wanted to mention that, so as you know, we're switching to county policing in Netherland. We thought that we were no longer going to have to maintain evidence storage, but it turns out we are. But Troy, our new emergency coordinator for Netherland, who I believe this meeting is up against the Gilpin County mini MAC or MAC meeting, and he's doing a lot, Troy's doing a lot of coordination with Gilpin County because that's necessary. We realize that fire doesn't respect county lines. And anyway, he has made room in the evidence storage, we call it the large biomass building behind the community center, for an organization called Ned Shred. And that is a partnership between Simba Cycling, the Teen Center, Endurance Performance, or whatever Gavin's nonprofit is, Gavin Coombs. Anyway, a collaboration of nonprofits together where they make sure they have accessibility to, youth has access to bikes. And so they've ordered brand new bikes, put them together, and give them to youth to use, youth being elementary through teens, and then run different programs. And it's called Ned Shred. And there was a big article in the April 16th edition of the Mountaineer on that. So you can look that up. But anyway, we're able to provide space for them to provide that service to Netherland youth. So we're happy about that. And I also wanted, I think I had mentioned that there is no composting right now going on in Netherland, which really impacts our zero waste initiatives. We hope to have that back in place. As soon as the county gets it together, we'll be back on board with that. So, but it's a little unfortunate. They're not taking paper towels, and it wasn't us who messed it up in the mountains. It was people down in Boulder getting stuff into that stream, that compost stream that shouldn't have been in there. So basically, we want to pat ourselves on the back and say, yay, Ned, and mountains, you've done a great job. And it wasn't us who messed it up, but we're suffering the consequences of it. So I think that's about all I had. Other than, yeah, I think that's it. Did anybody else have anything else to add?
I have a question. You were talking about kind of loaning stuff out, and in Mountain Forum for Peace, one of the things we've had to stop taking are like all the baby bouncers and baby, like, things that move and hold the baby, is because they don't sell and we can't pass them on because like the Goodwills and other places don't want them.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys heard a need from your communities for any of that stuff?
I haven't. So the best place to pass that on to is people, we suggest they put it on Ned Mamas. So there's Ned Heads group or any of the social media sites, say free.
I mean, basically we said we can't take them, so then it becomes like, if Jane has one, she can post it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was sad because a lot of it was good quality. It wasn't, it wasn't used that much, and we just didn't have anywhere to pass them on to.
Yeah, it's frustrating, and because those are those items everybody wants to get at a yard sale, because you use them for 6 to 8 weeks and you're done.
Mm-hmm.
You go through them so fast. When I went to Tennessee with my twins, my daughter has 4 of them lined up in a row because she wanted 2 on each level. So she literally has 3 levels in her home, and she has equipment that she multiplied that she was given to her so she wouldn't have to haul the equipment up and down the stairs along with 2 babies. So that was interesting to see. I was like, wow, it looks like a daycare in here. But it was wise. And then she'll just donate it to some friend, some other person. But yeah, the Ned sites. I'm wondering, Tegan, if at your sale, I can even provide like a big foam board where people could post photographs or 3x5 cards.
Yeah, we definitely. I've supplied that idea before. I think that'd be fine if you want to do it. Kind of where the conversation has gone before is like, well, people can just post that on Ned Heads, Ned Mamas, etc.
They can, but if they bring it,
fine. Yeah.
We would keep a board down in the lobby if people wanted to, if people were interested. But yeah, it's true.
I mean, that's fine with us. I think the decision was, for us, it wasn't worth the work, or we weren't sure how much people would utilize it.
Yep.
But it wasn't like, no, we don't want it. It was just like, well, I'm not sure.
I get it. Yeah, it's on social media. You can go there if you need it. Okay. Anybody have anything else?
The sale taken is on the 29th this year?
Okay. What-
The yard sale. Yeah, it starts. I could send the flyer out to you guys. That's probably easier.
That would be good.
Now, if you could put it on a Google group, thank you.
Yeah, I can do that.
Are
Thank
we
you,
gonna
Tegan.
leave this in a minute or two because we're over?
It's okay. She said there's not another one coming on, so she said we were fine to go
Oh,
over 11
excellent.
o'clock if we
All right,
needed
good.
to.
Thank you. Yeah, there'll be no meeting next month. Correct?
No meeting. That's
Yeah, so I'm happy to put on information on our lunch on the 22nd, when I know where it's gonna be. So Don, you and Colleen, let me know.
Is it the 22nd or is it at some later?
No, it's the 22nd, and then we're gonna do something public, more public, like a recruitment thing, later.
later.
That was
Yeah,
what
the
we
recruitment
discussed.
thing. Yeah.
Can Dawn come even though she'll stay?
Yeah,
We'll see. She's not just, she doesn't know yet.
we'll come and celebrate Colleen.
We'll celebrate her staying and that would be great.
Yeah.
I hope so. I hope so. Not a done deal yet, but I'm
Don't-
optimistic for the first time in a while. It was looking pretty bleak.
Don't let us
I'm gonna,
down.
so Friday at 10.
Friday at 10 is when I am looking at, tomorrow morning at 10, we're meeting the owner at the place. So,
How far is it from Ned?
it's gonna, he said 10 minutes. I'm like, yeah, if you're like really hauling, I mean, to drive, to maintain your suspension and your CV joints on your truck, I would say more like 15. But it's like down 72, the hangar, from Netherland, hang a right on South Beaver. And it's, it's down there a ways. It's past the fishing club. It's right smack dab in the middle of Lincoln Hills. So the property is on the creek. There's a 20-foot drop down to the creek, but even if you were able to access the creek, you couldn't fish there because it's owned by Lincoln Hills. So unless you buy, are you ready for this? Their $40,000 fishing membership to Lincoln Hills. Yes, to fish that stretch of South Boulder Creek and use their fancy new tennis courts and their, gated club access and all that. You cannot fish. And which is why so many people who were longtime residents of that area left. They sold and left when Lincoln Hills came in because, they bought the water rights. And that's how it is. So anyway, it would be a place to live and I would be grateful for that. And we'll see if my fly fishing husband could deal with living on the creek and not being able to fish it.
Oh, maybe he could just strike a deal with somebody. You never know.
Yeah, that's what I said. I'm like, oh, I know him. He'll be talking to people and he'll be working for someone who has a membership before you know it. So or working for the organization itself. That's not my problem. My problem is housing. I'm staying in my lane. So anyway. I'm really hopeful. And actually the teacher who is renting that cabin now works for Chinook West for the teen center. But, he's going to be moving on. So that's how that came available. But without word of mouth, I would never have known about it. So that's just how things are. And actually Wendy stopped him from posting it on Craigslist and Zillow. He's like, oh yeah, I've got this cabin. I'm just about to post on Zillow. And she was like, stop. And she got him to not post it on Craigslist and Zillow because it would have been gone in 30 seconds, probably to someone who is not from the area, probably to someone else from the city or from out of state. It would be like, look at this great cabin in Colorado. And it would have been, and that's how it is. So you just gotta keep it out there. And I'm continuing to look for E-Man and others. So, we'll see. All right, guys. Thank you. I appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much for such a great running of a meeting.
Well, thank you for coming. I thought it was a good meeting. I learned a lot. Thank you, Tegan, for your reports.
And thank you, Don. You
Tegan
did a
and
great
everyone.
job.
Great to see you all. See you
Okay.
All right. See y'all later.
Ciao.